Hello, thanks for tuning in. Thought I'd run you through some of my favourite tools. In particular, one of the most important jobs that you can do on an oil head is your spline lube. And doing that, you have to take your final drive off, your drive shaft and your drive shaft cover. So I thought I'd run you through some of the tools I use for that and some of the tools that I made myself. One important tool you need is a good heat gun. So I was using a craft heat gun. The trouble with that is that you're never too sure just how hot it was getting. This one here was about 50 Australian dollars. As you can see, it's got a LED readout here and I can control the temperature. What you want to do, don't want to get it too hot, but for the drive shaft cover, a couple of pinion bolts here and here which have Loctite on them, and you want to heat those to 120 degrees Celsius. So this gun allows you to make sure you get to the right temperature, but not too hot that you start to take paint off. It also comes with a bunch of different nozzles, so you can use this one for getting more concentrated and direct in your area. You've got one which has a broad thin spread. You've got another one here which allows you, if you had wire that you had heat shrink on, you could rest your wire inside there. There's a couple of places that you need BMW special tools, particularly for the final drive cover. So for your power lever or your final drive, sorry, not your drive shaft cover, you can take this off alright, but to put it back on, this particular one here, you can see there's an external nut as well as an internal hex. So what you need to be able to do is have a socket which goes over the top, and Allen key which can go in there. So the idea is that you can put your socket on, you can torque this down if you're with a torque wrench with a hex head, and once it's torqued down right, you want to put your Allen key in there. So put your socket on, put your Allen key in to hold that middle screw steady, and with your torque wrench, torque the nut to the right torque setting. So you'll need that when you're installing. For other places on the bike, such as your tele lever, you actually need a window socket like this to take it off. So you want to hold the hex screw steady as you take it off, and I think, as I mentioned, the tele lever is one of those places. So if we look here, if you wanted to take your tele lever off, you'd need one of these sockets to go on top. So imagine that it's screwed right down. You want this socket on top and an Allen key to hold this middle screw steady whilst you undid the outside nut. So both these sockets, I just bought a standard 21mm deep socket, and then I got a Dremel clone that I used to cut a window out, and the same with this one here. I bought a standard 30mm deep socket and cut a window out. So one of my favourite little tools. Pardon me. Here's this one here. So this is like a Dremel clone made by Ryobi, which it can cut, polish, drill, quite a little versatile machine. What I found was that standard cutting discs that come with the Ryobi you can see look like that, quite small, very thin, ideal for cutting plastic and really thin metal. But when you're dealing with these sockets, you're looking at around about 5mm there, and 8 or 9mm up the top. Same with this socket here, it's only about 3mm thick that way, but up the top here it's 8mm. So trying to cut through that with one of these little discs is obviously takes a lot of time, and these are very brittle and break easy. So I bought this little Dremel disc holder which will fit inside my Ryobi, and as you can see, if I can compare this disc from Dremel, which is a reinforced thin cut disc, compared to the standard Ryobi, there's quite a difference there. So well worth. I think this was around about $15, and you can buy these in a pack. Again, I really was able to cut through this steel a lot easier than obviously this little one was, although I must admit I did resort to an angle grinder at some stages too, with a real thin blade there. So obviously these are hardened steel, these sockets, so I started off, say did some of my deeper cuts with the angle grinder, and then finished off with the Dremel blade. I did, obviously one might think, oh, I'll just use a hacksaw. Obviously you can use a hacksaw that way, but when you go to cut these lengthways, you can't do that cut without some sort of disc to come through here. This is a final drive that I'm rebuilding at the moment, and it's got a leaking seal in here. What I found was there is a special tool again from BMW which is available for purchase to get the seal out. It's quite expensive. What I found was that Chevrolet trucks have an axle nut, and this socket is actually for a Chevrolet axle nut. So it's as you can see, it's got these 4 tangs or pins at the top here, and this is the ideal size to go into here and undo a lock nut to get the seal out. So I think price varies a bit. I've seen these on eBay for around about $70. I bought this one from Amazon for $12 US. It's quite heavy, it's around about half a kilo, and really good quality. It saved me a lot of money by buying off Amazon. So you'll find that sometimes you'll get better deals on Amazon, sometimes you get better deals on eBay, but definitely heaps cheaper than BMW. Last bit I wanted to show you was there's these little dowels that I've made for assisting with removal and installation of my transmission. So again, BMW sell these as a special tool. These are just M8 bolts, 120mm long, that I've cut the bolt head off, and then just put a small slot in the top so that I can put a screwdriver in there and screw them in if I need. So I'll do a short video on how I use those as well. So instead of, like, I think they're about $30 from BMW, these bolts were about $1 each from my local hardware store. And again, I just use my middle Ryobi tool there, put them in a vise, took the head off, and then put a small cup this way.